All right, my friend, welcome back to the More Than Social podcast. I am so excited. We have a very unique, fun guest for you today, Liz. She is the Fresh Prince of email marketing, or French princess, I should say, of email marketing. She has been on Survivor. She is living the dream life where she takes off certain months at a time to be able to live her life and do everything she wants to do. So Liz, so grateful that you are here with us today. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked because y'all, the name of this podcast, More Than Social, I teach email marketing. And so you already know I'm like, yes, please let me on this show. I want to talk.
I'm like, you know what? When I originally named More Than Social, like the podcast, I think deep down I knew that what it means now is totally different than what I started with. But originally this podcast was all about the strategy. So I would have asked you a lot of questions about how do you set up email campaigns, like that type of aspect. But then about 100 or so episodes in, I had like this gut feeling. I was like, you know what? I want to talk about more than social media, more than strategy, more than all of that. So out of curiosity, what does more mean to you when you think about more than social? You know by now, it takes way more than social media to build a business that actually supports your life. Welcome to More Than Social, the real talk podcast for entrepreneurs who are done with the highlight reel and ready to have honest convos about what it really takes to grow a wildly successful business in a life you love. I'm your host, Lisa Ann, type A personality, digital marketing expert, coach, and your get right to the point business bestie. Around here, we talk about the messy middle, the mindset shifts, the wins, and even the WTF moments behind the scenes of entrepreneurship. Because let's be real, this journey, it's more about content calendars and chasing video views on social media. It's about the motivation to keep you going, owning your success, staying resilient through all the chaos, and evolving into that next version of yourself. So if you are here to grow with more clarity, more courage, and have a little bit less BS in your life, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
That's a great question. For me, it means like your business is so much more than just posting on social media. There's so many different aspects. On one side, there's so many different strategies and tactics that you can do. And then to Lisa Ann's point, there's so much more about business that we can talk about. I think when you first start your business, it's so much of how do I get a following online? I guess I got to get on Instagram or TikTok or whatever is clever in that moment. And, everything revolves around that. But there's so much more to running an online business, whether it's strategy and tactics or it's mindset and learning from other entrepreneurs. So I love this podcast. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, like it's what we see on social media is a highlight reel. Like we can pick and choose what we put out there. No one talks about the hardship of it or even what you do outside of social media. So for me, it's very much how can we take that conversation that internally we're having with ourselves or with our business partners or with whoever's around us in that close circle and actually show the world that, you know what, entrepreneurship is hard for one. It's exciting. It's constantly changing. Like there's so much more to it. Now, I know your story in terms of you went from the poop girl to now who you are. So I would love for you to share a little bit more of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So as Lisa Ann said, I started out as the poop lady, and that is because I was an RV travel blogger. So if you don't know, in an RV, like there's bathrooms, right? So you are driving down the road with your sewage, going 70 miles an hour on I-75, things are bound to happen. And so my claim to fame in that RV travel world was I wrote a book about all the mishaps that could happen with RV travel. And that sewage tank is called the Black Tank. I wrote a book called Tales from the Black Tank. I wrote it, I think I was 7 months into blogging, 7 months into entrepreneurship. And it kind of made a name for me, right? Without even knowing that's what I was going to do. And so everywhere I went, like, oh, that's the RV poop lady. Oh, Tales from the Black Tank. Oh, that's so funny. That was the name of the book. And, after a few years, I realized like, I'm actually a lot more than that. I have a master's degree in leadership. Sure, I'm funny. I can be snarky, but, I don't want to go to campgrounds and be recognized as the poop lady, right? I don't want to go to events and, just be talking about crappy stories all day. And I realized that I was actually really good at email marketing. I was really good at connecting with those people. I mean, granted, it was over poop, right? It was over those crappy experiences. And I realized that I had a lot of friends in the RV blogging space and beyond that were like, Liz, you don't even blog anymore. How are you making money? I said, oh, email marketing. And so after a few years, I realized I need to sell that business. I need to sell that blog and teach email marketing, teach what I know, because anything I sold, whether it was a book about crappy RV stories or it was an online course about RV maintenance to people who had never bought anything online, let alone an online course, I realized I know how to talk to people, I know how to sell, and I know how to do it with email marketing. So I sold that blog, went all in on the email marketing thing back in 2019. And now I'm talking to you and Lisa Ann on the More Than Social podcast.
You know what's interesting is like some people, they'll get so caught up in, okay, I'm doing really good with this business. I'm being successful. Like, sure, if I'm going to be the poop lady, that's who I am now. But you took that and you changed it, and you changed your whole position, and you changed who you are in the online space, I'll say. So how did you change that entire message around, like, obviously everything you do now is very personal branded and everything. So how did you go from the poop lady to now the email marketing queen?
Yeah. So I did something I think a lot of us entrepreneurs, especially our first business, I did not pivot. I sold, right? I sold that blog. I sold the book, and the rights to the book. I sold the email list. I sold the whole package. It was called the Virtual Campground. I knew I wanted to sell it about a year and a half before I sold it. So I slowly started moving myself out of the business. So instead of, talking about me and my travels, I would highlight other people's. I would get guest bloggers. I would talk about other people in my newsletters. I would, I even changed the name. It was lizwilcox.com and I changed it to thevirtualcampground.com because I knew I didn't want to be the face of this business forever. And so slowly I just, of course I'm always Liz Wilcox. If you Google me, you'll be like, oh yeah, how did that lady sell a blog with her face all over it? But it really was about removing myself and inputting the community. For a year before I sold the blog, it was all community. Let me feature you. I started a live show where I was featuring other guests and I would let them talk. I wasn't the star of the show. I tried to make sure my guests were the stars, right? And so even when I sold that business, the biggest thing, I actually sold it to one of my email subscribers. They said, well, Liz, you're such a large personality. How can we take this over? And I said, actually, if you've noticed over the last few years, or over the last year and a half, I have not written a blog post. I have always had guests on the show. The newsletters have always been about you, not me. And so that really helped. And so I was able to sell that business. And because I had been in the online space, I had made a few connections with people in my new industry, right? In the B2B online business space. And I said, hey, I just started this thing. Can you help me out? And, I was able to get features in digital summits, get on podcasts, etc. But it was very intentional where I would talk about, I used to do that the same way I did on this podcast. Oh, this is what I used to do. It wasn't ever I have this blog and I'm doing this. It was, no, that's what I used to do. So just talking about it in a different way was really important too. And then again, I didn't pivot a lot. I see so many people. Well, I started a food blog, but now I want to do this other thing. And instead of selling the food blog, they just try to make their email list and their audience work for this new thing. And that can be really hard to separate. But to Lisa Ann's question, I think selling the blog, moving completely into a new industry made that transition pretty simple.
And so I've never sold a business. So what does that actually entail? Like, how did you, I know you mentioned you found someone on your email list to buy it. Did you just come right out and say, hey guys, I'm selling this business. Is there anyone here that wants it? Or how did you go about that?
Literally, yes. That's exactly what I did. I did it in a Facebook group. So there are Facebook groups that you can sell your blogs and your online businesses. There's also websites. I can't come up with the names. And at first I was trying to be really fancy about it, go to those dedicated websites for selling your blog. And I wasn't really getting much traction, and I was, in fact, getting discouraged. But I'm the type of person that just is very quick to action. When I've made up my mind, I'm doing it. And so finally I was like, wait a second. I could just go in the Facebook group where everybody knows me. Everybody knows my blog. I've been in this group for like 5 years growing this blog. Let me just post in there. Because I didn't want to post it to my email list and panic everyone. But there were a lot of people on my email list in this Facebook group, but they were also entrepreneurs. It was an RV entrepreneur Facebook group. So very specific, people looking to grow businesses from their travel trailers, right? And so I was able to say exactly what Lisa Ann said, like, hey guys, I'm thinking about, I want to teach this new thing. I don't want to abandon the virtual campground. I'd love for someone to take it over. I'd love for someone to buy it, hit reply or DM me or whatever. And somebody that had been on my email list since the very beginning DM'd me. His wife and they end up buying the business within like a few months. And it was just a really smooth transition. I stayed on the business for, I think, 6 months, helping them, helping offboard Liz Wilcox and onboard the Bettons and, do the live show with them, and then transition out of the live show, do the newsletters with them, transition out of the newsletter, help them, with any and every question they had in the first 6 months. So it was a great way to do it. And that also got me a little bit more money because I stayed on for a while.
Yeah. And I feel like that's such a great approach, because so many people, like you said, they'll look at the traditional ways of doing things, like go to the website, get a lawyer, like whatever the case may be. But so many times people miss what's sitting right in front of them. Like going to the source. Like you went to the Facebook group, you went and just said, right, here's exactly what I want to do, without cookie cutting it or putting a cherry on top. Like just be normal, just be upfront of what you actually want to do, and then it'll come.
Yeah, it's just what you said. What's the most obvious solution? What's the easiest way to do that? And that's a little side note, whenever I have to make a decision, like either in my personal life or in my business, this especially helps in my business because we're always bombarded with 1,000,001 like ways we can go. I always ask myself 2 questions. Number 1, what would this look like if it was easy? And then of course, sometimes it's not easy, right? Sometimes it's just freaking hard. And so I always have that backup question of what would this look like if it was fun? And between those two, I can usually come up with the next right step. And that's what I did with selling the blog. It was like, okay, researching these sites, having to pay a broker fee, that's not easy. That's not fun. What if I just freaking posted it in that Facebook group where people are always talking about wanting to grow a business? What if somebody wants to buy it? And it worked.
And here you are. And that's one thing, like the fun aspect, like your entire brand is fun. Like you are a fun person, like you're unique. And it's like, that is something that you're shouting to the world. And I think that is so, I'm going to say one, courageous, because I feel like so many people, as soon as they start to show up online, they try to put on this face that they're not, or this face that they think that they should be, but you have gone completely opposite. So can we dive into that a little bit? Like did you always come out, like even with the poop stuff in that business, like were you always just yourself, or did you ever have this shield up?
Yeah, I think it really started when I was young. I think I just had the privilege of starting younger to be myself. I was a really sick kid. And my mom, one day I was home from school and she was like, the more you try to be like everyone else, the sicker you get. And I thought, golly, if that ain't the truth. And people don't like me anyway. And I'm tired of being sick. I might as well just be myself. And that was 7th grade. So I was like 12 or 13. So I think I just got a head start on being myself, where most people, it takes them until, maybe mid-20s to be like, to hell with it. I'm just going to be who I am. And when it comes to the business, another reason I wanted to sell the virtual campground was I found that I was falling into that trap of being who my audience wanted me to be. And of course, there's always some catering to your audience, right? You're a business. You have to be a professional. But I found, I'm 37 years old. At the time, I was in my 20s when I had that blog. Wow, so long ago. And I just found that, I wanted to talk about like NSYNC and wear rainbow and, headbands, and my audience were men in their 60s, right? So way older, way different parts of life. So I had to talk about things that would relate to them, right? Instead of talking about NSYNC, maybe I'm talking about AC/DC. Instead of saying the word shit, I would say crap, like just to be a little more professional. And I found after a few years of owning that blog, I just got a little tired. I was like, oh, I'm kind of over it. I don't want to serve these people anymore. Who do I want to serve? And that's what really gave me, signing my own permission slip to sell the blog and go all in on what you see now at lizwilcox.com, like the backwards cap, the rainbow glasses, t-shirt, or, in sync in the background, all sorts of colors, fresh princess, calling myself the fresh princess of email marketing, like it's just leaning in. I've realized, and I saw it a little bit in the virtual campground, but I see it a lot in lizwilcox.com, and this email marketing membership is the more I can lean into Liz, the more money I make, which you always hear. Y'all, I know you've heard it before. I know it's unbelievable, but I tell no lies. It's so true. The more I tried to be something for that, 60-year-old audience, the less money I made. But the more, when I would write a book about poop and just be snarky, oh my gosh, we love it, Liz, right? Like, this is great. Let's buy it. Even with my email marketing membership, it's $9. I think part of the reason it sells is like, I don't want to raise the price. And people love that about it. And, when you go to the videos in the membership, it's just a little loom with my little head. And I'm kind of, hey, write this week. Here's why, it's like maybe 2 to 5 minutes. And it's not this professional polished thing. I literally just hit record. I very rarely stop and re-record, only if I like yawn in the middle of it and I'm like, oh, that was not a good look. Let me re-record. That's like very rare, right? People love that. I'll tell you what, there was a Loom video I made for one of the templates. Every template that I give out, there's a video description. I was just feeling kind of weird and bored. And I remembered, let's have fun with it, Liz. And I brought out this like ceramic fish that I had just bought. And I was like, hey guys. And I was like talking through the fish. And I was like, hey guys, Liz has done like 10 of these in a row and she's feeling really weird and tired, but we got one more to go. And then I took the fish away and was like, what's up? And then I had fun and I was able to finish that. I feel like it was some of my best advice. And I had so many replies of, yes, Liz, this is why we stick around. You are a great example of just being yourself. And when you're yourself, it makes me feel like less pressure to be perfect online. And so y'all, seriously, the more you can be yourself, the more you're going to attract the right people. I'm sure I got cancellations for that video. I'm sure people were like, oh my gosh, what did I sign up for? Why is Lisa Ann recommending this? What? Who is this lady? But it will attract the right people and it will repel the wrong people. And you're going to feel so much more comfortable, make so much more money, just slowly lean into yourself and see what happens. It's magical.
And like when you start a business, like business is hard, but if you can make it fun, you're going to love what you do every single day. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's days where you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, or there's admin work and stuff like that. Like I know you work with your sister too, but it's like, there's going to be hard stuff within your business, but if you can keep the fun aspect in it, like that's what I'm all about. Just keep having fun. Keep enjoying what you're doing or why you're doing it.
Yeah. And y'all, like fun doesn't look the same for everyone, right? You don't have to have a ceramic fish and teaching email marketing behind it. Like that might not be your definition of fun, but I will tell you, I just did today actually a 2-hour presentation for like a mastermind, and we did little email audits, and they were all food bloggers. And I got to look at every single one of their welcome sequences. And y'all, every single one of them, and I say it with love if you're listening and you were there, it was, hey, Liz Wilcox here. I'm so glad you joined my email list. I'm so happy you're here. Everyone had that same sentence. And I was like, ladies, is that really how you talk? Is that what you would say? What would you actually say? If it is what you would actually say, keep it. If not, as you're seeing, we all have the same sentence over and over. If I signed up for all 3 of y'all's email lists, it would be the same thing. I would be like, what the heck? who am I getting emails from, right? So it really behooves you to just have fun with it, to say what you would actually say, like, hey, let's get this party going, or, it's my pleasure to write these blog posts for you. Whatever your personality is, inject it into your business, because again, that's how you're going to make some real cash.
Amazing. I love it. Now let's go to your membership for a bit. Like, I know you mentioned kind of what's inside your membership, and that's $9 if you don't want to raise the price. I have talked to a few people about your membership, and I will say, guys, it's $9 a month, and she's making a lot of money, and it's so simple. How did you come up with the concept, first of all? And then how did you decide to only charge $9? Because I know people have told you a million times to raise your price and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I came up with the idea. Honestly, it was on a little mastermind call, and one of the ladies said, oh, I'm in this template membership for Instagram where they give me templates and ideas for what to post on Instagram. And I thought, oh my gosh, what? I should do that for email. So nobody knows what the heck to send for emails, and you can't even see other people's emails unless you're subscribed to everybody. Like, I should do that. I can write emails all day. And then, of course, I promptly sat on the idea for 3 months and did nothing with it, right? And I was going to write my newsletter, and I was like, what do I say to these people today? And then I thought, well, yeah, that's the problem, Liz. You should write up an email and say, hey, I'm thinking about this template membership where I write your weekly newsletters, Mad Lib style, fill in the blank. What do you think? And to Lisanne's second question, I'm like, well, how much do I charge for this? And I looked at my numbers. I was like, okay, my Tripwire was $22. That's when you join my email list. I sent you to the sales page. It's a limited time offer. It's usually pretty cheap. I was like, okay, well, $22. People are buying it, but they're not buying it enough. I want more sales. Because I know if I can get a customer, I can get a repeat customer, right? And that's the best kind. So I'm like, how can I get the maximum amount of people into this membership? Because maybe if I can sell them for $1, I can sell them for $100, right? And I thought, well, when I was first starting, I was really broke. I had no money, no support. My then husband thought I was, in a cult and was being scammed. There's no such thing as making money online, Liz, if you don't take your clothes off, he said, and I'm like, no, I know. And so I was like, what was the amount that I could reasonably spend without feeling guilty? And it was like under $10. If it was under $10, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to check it out. So I thought $9, if I could get, just 100 people in there, that'd be $900 a month. $900 a month? Wow, that's a lot of money. And I thought, what if I could get 1,000 people? That'd be 9,000. I could probably get 1,000 people in the next couple years. I could do that. And so I wrote the email. It was literally, the subject line was, can I have $9? And it was like, hey, here's my idea. I'm going to create this membership. You're going to get weekly newsletter templates because you never know what to say. And I always do. You're going to get, and then I threw in like, we'll do Q&A. We'll do quarterly guest expert, maybe some other stuff. What do you say? Give me $9. It's not going to be crap. And I got 30 people in the first 24, 36 hours. And I was like, okay, let's go for 100. I want to get 100 people in the next 30 days. And we did it. We got 100 people in 28 days. I was like, wow, I am rich. Move over Jeff Bezos. I just hit gold. I just struck gold. And, that was at the time of this recording 4.5 years ago. And I have not stopped talking about it and asking for $9 since.
Which is amazing. And it goes back to the whole concept that we were talking about. One, just ask. And two, just go right to the source if you're looking to launch something or if you're looking at a new idea. So many people, yes, you sat on it for 3 months, but so many people just sit there, or they start to build everything before they even launch anything.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm sorry to interrupt. Y'all, if it was not clear, I did not have any templates. I did not research membership site options. I said, can I have $9? This is my idea. And I wrote the email, I wrote the newsletter, and maybe some of y'all can relate. I wrote it 20 minutes before I had to pick my daughter up from the school bus. Okay. So I literally wrote in the email, my daughter is about to get off the school bus. If you purchase, absolutely nothing is going to happen. But trust me, I see your purchase. And if anybody buys this, your first template will come to you tomorrow. So I get my daughter off the school bus. I check it like an hour later. I'm like, oh, I see some sales. Okay, this wasn't a stupid idea. Awesome. And so I got up early the next morning. It's like, oh my gosh, now I got to write a template. And I wrote a template. I don't even remember the first one that I wrote. And I sent it out in a Google Doc. And for 1 year, 365 days, that membership was just Google Docs. It was me sending out, here's the link to the drive. Here's the link to this week's specific newsletter. Holler at you later. Now, everyone, oh, you got to put it behind a paywall, da, da, da. I'm like, I'm not famous enough for people to be stealing from me. So I'm just happy to be taking the $9 at a time. And so after a year, y'all, in it 1 year, I hit 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 members. I thought that was going to take me 2 years. So that I had made, at that point with the membership, I had made, I would say over at least like $35,000 or $40,000. That's when I decided, okay, this needs to go behind a paywall. And y'all, I just did WordPress, the same as Lisa Ann said. What's the most obvious answer? I was like, well, I already have a website. I'll just put some plugins so people can log in and there's the stuff. And so, it can really be that simple.
It can. And that's like, I'm even saying that, and I'm the one that loves sales pages. I love funnels. I love all the automations. I love all having that back end stuff set up. But like, if you build it before you test it, it's never going to get to the point that one, you're confident that you can keep selling it over and over. Or sometimes you don't even know what people actually want or how you want to position it in the beginning. So I love that you just kind of threw it out there. Now, since you mentioned your daughter getting off the bus, you obviously know I'm pregnant, about to have my second kid. Running a business, being a mom, and by the way, you said my past husband, or my ex-husband, however you said it.
Then husband.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard you say that. Don't you usually say husband?
Yeah, normally I call him my husband, y'all. He was my husband, now he's not.
Yeah, I love that. But you said that, and I was like, hey. I was like, she usually says husband. Okay, so running a business while having a daughter. How do you manage and balance your time to be present with your daughter, plus do all the things that you do?
I love this question. Literally, when I had my RV blog, I was working in the margins of life. My husband was in the military, so he had, 9 to 5, super stressful job. And y'all, I didn't even have internet on my phone when I started my business. And so it was just in the margins of life, going to the library, going to Lowe's parking lots. But then that's also how I got into, guest blogging, getting other people to write blog posts for me, right? Because it was like, I don't have time to write a blog post, but golly, I know Shahara's trying to grow her blog. She could write something for me and put her freebie at the bottom. I don't care as long as I've got content. Even that book that we were talking about that I wrote, y'all, I did not write that. I wrote 1 chapter and I got 8 other bloggers to write chapters for me, right? And then they got affiliate links to promote the book. And then even now with email marketing membership, I chose something that I knew would not take me that much time to create, right? It's 1 weekly newsletter template a week. They might take me 20, 30 minutes to write. That's something that I knew I could do easily. It was my zone of genius. Now, also keeping the price tag at $9, that's an easy sell. I don't need to spend, 4 to 6 weeks crafting the perfect evergreen funnel. It's $9. That would be excessive to do. And it also, the $9 price tag allows me to turn the computer off. If somebody messages us and says, hey, I got a question, I can't find this template, I don't feel obligated to email them back within 30 seconds, right? Because they're not paying me thousands of dollars. I was doing client work. And y'all, the day that I created email marketing membership, I also signed $20,000 in client work. I should have been happy, but all I could think about was the pressure to create $20,000 worth of copywriting work. That felt like a lot as a single mom. That felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day before my daughter gets on the school bus. So creating this really low cost, low responsibility membership allows me, like when Lisa Ann and I get off this call, I'm going to go walk to pick up my daughter from school because I'm still a single mom. I take her to school in the morning. I pick her up in the afternoon. I can only work like 9 to 2 p.m., right? That's not a lot of time. But having this $9 offer and just selling it over and over and over again, growing the email list, doing podcasts like this, going to events, things like that has allowed me to just turn off my computer at the end of the day. Hey, it's $9. Love you. I'll answer that tomorrow. And my customers, people will say, oh, well, if you have something cheap, your customers know it, they take advantage of you. They want the world. That's not true. Because I set the expectation. I say, hey, this is $9. I'll get it back to you within 24 hours. That's a $9 customer service, thing. And people love it. They say, oh yeah, $9. I can't believe I'm getting all this for $9. They know they're getting a deal. And so, they'll wait for a second.
And I love it. And you hear it all the time, like $9 or lower price point, they're needy. But it's like, if you have those boundaries that you set right off the bat, like, I think that, like, that's really the key of it, is like, you have those boundaries set and you're sticking to them, versus as soon as you answer someone within the first 30 seconds that they send you an email, they're going to expect that over and over and over again, right?
Yes, y'all. I'll end with this on this subject. I got an email from someone a few weeks ago asking me a question. It was a member, and I answered it in the email. And yeah, it took me like 10 minutes of my time. Then they came back with a second question, and it was time for me to log off, do something else. I was like, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow. And by the time I had gotten back to it, she had emailed back and she said, you know what? For $9, I feel like you should not answer this question. You have been so generous with your time, because I had answered her question, like her initial question, with a video. She said, you've been so generous with your time. I'm just going to ask the Facebook group. And so, like, people know, like Lisa Ann said, when you set that boundary, they know when you're over delivering or being extremely generous. And for the most part, the right people, the people that you want to stay around and become repeat customers, will understand that and find their answers elsewhere, pay you extra, wait their turn, whatever.
And so I have one more question for you. I know you want to get your daughter. I have to touch on this because everyone's definitely going to ask. Survivor. So I don't necessarily want to talk about your Survivor experience, because everyone should have watched it. If you haven't, go watch it. I want to talk about, how did you go away for so long and not stress about your business, and that, like, did you ever think you're going to come back and your business is going to be completely gone?
Yeah, so I left around the time that ChatGPT was brand new. So obviously the whole time I was in Fiji, I was like, well, copywriting's dead. I'm going to go home. Everyone will have canceled their membership and I'll have to figure something else out. So that in that case, I definitely, just with the timing, thought, oh no, but it wasn't overwhelming, but I did have that thought. But how I was able to go away is just to have, again, my business is very lean. It's a simple business. I don't have many upsells. If I do, they're live workshops. So obviously I wouldn't be doing a live workshop while I'm away. But I did actually hire an operations, like, systems manager about 3 months before I went on the show. And I said, we need to get everything out of my brain and put it into Notion. That's our task manager. And I mean, we went over the mission of the business, the vision of the business, the brand voice, how we interact in the inbox, how we don't interact in the inbox. Do we use contractions or don't we? Like, what's a good cuss word and what's a bad cuss word that we wouldn't say? Things like that. And then, of course, the typical systems of, when we're launching, we do this. When we write a newsletter, we do this, et cetera, et cetera. And I was able to, basically upload my brain into the computer, which, wow, no wonder I'm so tired. I thought I had a simple business until she asked me everything under the sun about my business. And then, of course, my sister works for me. She was part-time for about a year before I left to go on the show. And I asked her, she had another job. I asked her if she would quit that job and come work for me full-time. And of course, she loves me, thank God. And she said yes. So we were able to, working with that operations manager, pick out what are the essential tasks, what can be just left for, to hibernate while Liz is away. What are we doing that we don't even need to be doing in the first place? And really set Patricia up, my now assistant, for success while I was away. I also prepped all the I'm an email first business. So we prepped all the emails. I wrote every single email for the next 90 days, put the dates, who should be sent, what tags, et cetera, et cetera. And so everything went super, super smoothly. And y'all, I know it seems crazy. You're probably never going to go on Survivor, right? But the ability to take time off is wild. So when you have extra cash flow, hiring that operations manager to basically upload your brain into the cloud, wow. Now I know with certainty I can take any time off I want and the business will be fine. And I also know what I need to do to prep to take that time off. And it has been an absolute game changer. This summer will be the third summer in a row that I take a really long period of time off.
And so now coming back after Survivor, getting back into the swing of things, working in your business now, having all those systems and everything that you had, how has that changed? Like how you do your everyday life even?
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, it's allowed me, like I said, to work 9 to 2. And even Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I only work noon to 2 because other people can take care of it. I know when I need to hire a contractor if my sister, is working too much, like during a launch or doing new things. It's also allowed us this year to try new things because everything's kind of, on autopilot now, or we very easily can do things because we have a system down. We were able to say, yeah, let's start a YouTube channel. Let's start a daily podcast. There's just a lot more free time to play around with, and that's been super, super awesome.
I love it and so insightful. So thank you so much. Where can everyone find you? I know you mentioned your membership and your website a couple times, but give them the whole lowdown of where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. We mentioned my membership, so I'll just say you can go directly to lizwilcox.com. There's a yellow bar at the top that says something like, have you heard of my $9 thing? You can click that, check out the membership. It's $9 a month. If you're a little skeptical and you need to know more, of course, again, lizwilcox.com, there's a hot pink button. If you click on that, it's going to give you a welcome sequence, 3 newsletter samples from the membership, and 52 subject lines. Writing from scratch totally sucks. Let me do it for you. lizwilcox.com, hot pink button.
I love it. Love it. Love it. And the membership is so great. It just takes the thinking out of what you need to do every single day, especially you guys know how much email lists are important. We talk about it all the time, so I won't dive into that. But Liz, thank you so much. Your story is so inspiring, how you've transitioned into who you are today. And just biggest thing for me is how you're able to just show up every single day and be yourself and have fun within your business. I feel so many people need to hear that. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to see what everybody does.
Thank you. So that's a wrap on today's episode of More Than Social, where we keep it real, keep it honest, and keep growing together. If today hit home, can you do me a favor, please? Screenshot this episode, tag me, share it with the entrepreneurs in your world who need to hear it too. You never know who's waiting for a reminder that they're not alone in this journey. And hey, make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss the moments that pull back the curtain, that push you forward. Now go out there and take messy action. Own your success and remember this. You are not here to play small. You're here to build more. And I am cheering you on every step of the way, my friend. So I will see you next week.